CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
Well, BC Hydro was hit hard by that storm with massive outages up and down Vancouver Island and on the Gulf Islands, and crews are working still to try to get the lights back on. At the height of the storm, nearly 100,000 homes and businesses were without power, and Hydro crews have worked around the clock to try to restore the outages. More than 80% of the customers have been brought back up, but some people are going to spend another cold, dark night.
We have about 18,000 customers without power, and 16,000 of those in the Comox Valley-Cam River region. We have about 61 crews working on this, and there's 20 crews alone working Cam River. They're probably the most damaging in terms of tree impacts to our system there. And we're hoping to get about 75% of those customers on by late tonight, but certainly there will be customers going through the night and into tomorrow before we have the power restored.
Hydro is bracing for a second night of outages if the storm that is predicted for tomorrow materializes. We'll find out about that from Astrid in just a couple of minutes. Meantime, on the South Island, the wicked winds were keeping the tree clearing crews busy today as well, and it may be days yet before the whole mess is cleaned up. This was the scene in North Saanich today. The sound of chainsaws replacing the howling of the wind as crews were knocking down toppled trees and bucking them up and throwing yards full of branches into the chipper. These trees in North Saanich narrowly missed a house but didn't do any significant damage. The crews say it'll be days before it's all cleaned up.
We're looking at a row of cypresses that got blown over by the wind. It's kind of leaned up against the side of the other hedge there. Yeah, it's been a pretty busy winter compared to last year.
The wind made it a rough day on the water as well. Boats that broke away from their moorings were bobbing perilously in the waves, crashing onto shore. Owners say they don't have any choice but to wait for high tide to recover the vessels and then appraise the damage. Well, snow in the Alberni Valley and in the Cowichan Valley today and elsewhere on the island, and even on the South Island. You know winter's not over when you see this. This was the view in Langford this morning. The snow was blanketing fields and sticking to roads, causing some slippery streets for drivers in wooded areas. But a short time later, the sun came out, the powder began to melt, and pretty soon turned into a slushy drive. But it is cold out there this afternoon, and depending where you are on the island, there could be more snow. Downtown Victoria saw some flurries on and off this afternoon, none of them lasting longer than about a minute or so. And a suspected drunk driver was caught at a counterattack check stop in Victoria when he crashed his car into the one that was stopped in front of him. He was actually driving an SUV that was doing 60 kilometers an hour when he hit the car that had stopped for the police officers at the road check. That car's a write-off. The doctor inside who was driving wasn't hurt. Police say the suspected drunk driver had blood alcohol twice the legal limit. He was taken under arrest on the spot. And there are fears already that this ongoing dispute may have an impact on graduation this year, and it'll hurt grads who are hoping to be accepted at the University of British Columbia. They already know that because UBC said today it will not accept applications from grade 12 students in the province until proper report cards have been issued by the teachers. The university says because of the strike, teachers have not been issuing grades properly. Teachers have been giving marks directly to grade 12 students without report cards so that they are able to apply to post-secondary institutions. But UBC says without a report card or transcript, it cannot accept the grades. UBC says it plans to wait until May when those marks can be confirmed by the Ministry of Education. The University of Victoria, meantime, says if grads do not have their final marks by the UVic deadline, it will give applicants a conditional admission. Well, first teachers, then nurses, and now anesthesiologists are holding the province's feet to the fire. The anaesthetists say they are going to withdraw their services for elective surgery on April 1st if their demands are not met. The BC Anesthesiologists Society is issuing a second threat to cut services if the group does not get a seat at the bargaining table. The BC Medical Association negotiates on behalf of all doctors in the province, including specialist groups, but the anesthesiologists say they want to negotiate their own issues. The society president says the health ministry has been shutting its representatives out of the process.
We've offered to bring issues before the conciliator to have them addressed within the binding processes suggested 3 months ago by the health minister. And unfortunately, the BCMA and the ministry officials stand in the way of us occupying our seat at that table. They stand in the way of addressing the issues that we wish to bring forward. They stand in the way of better patient care in BC.
The Society says if the government does not address its issues on April 1st, it will begin freezing services. Anesthesiologists say they want to see improvement in wages, in doctor shortages, wait times, and patient safety. Well, in the midst of all this labour turmoil, there's one report card in, and the province is giving itself top marks after a surge in employment in British Columbia. Premier Christy Clark shared her 6-month update for the BC Jobs Plan at the North Vancouver shipyards today. The province says nearly 40,000 jobs have been added to the economy within the last year. The Premier says thousands more will be added thanks to the $8 billion C-SPAN shipbuilding contract.
Combined with other operations at C-SPAN, this contract will ensure 4,000 jobs over the next 8 years. And Jonathan Whitworth says it will create about 150 apprenticeships per year when it's fully operational. Eligible employers that employ apprentices in the British Columbia shipbuilding and ship repair industry can receive a refundable tax credit of 20% of wages paid per year.
Clark says the success of the C-SPAN bid was part of her government's plan to make BC one of the top 2 provinces in Canada by 2015 for growth in jobs and in gross domestic product. Well, if you live in the interior or on the Lower Mainland, you're heating with gas and cooking with gas, you'll find there's a little extra padding in your pocket come April thanks to a drop in natural gas prices. Not on the island, though. Fortis BC says a warm winter and weak commodity prices are allowing it to drop its cost to customers over the next quarter. Fortis BC says the gas price dip will save homeowners up to $100 a year. The company says, however, that for natural gas users on Vancouver Island, the gas rates will stay at 2011 levels. So no break here. That storm hit the Campbell River area and the Comox Valley especially hard. A lot of people still without power, sending trees to the ground, knocking down power lines, and boats crashing onto the shore as well. Roads throughout the region were blocked off today as crews were removing some of those trees. Contractors were run off their feet from site to site trying to remove debris so that the roads would be clear and safe so the hydro crews could do their work.
We've been really busy, yeah. It's been a bit of a disaster, the storm. This is, one of the worst, probably in 20 years, I would think. We're just going to buck things off the road, buck them off the power lines, and get hydro out here and throw a new line up.
In Comox, debris washed up along the shore, including entire boats. The strong winds broke the anchored vessels loose. One catamaran was partially submerged today as 3 others ran aground on a breakwater. It's expected those boats could be there for some time to come.
Some of these boats are going to be high. We had a very high tide yesterday. It was a 16.5-foot tide, pushed up a couple extra feet due to the wind. They're going to be tough to get out. You're not just going to drag them off the rocks. They're sustained some major damage. But there's 4 boats that I've seen that were damaged yesterday. 30-foot sailboat up on the beach, 50-foot steel hull Harlequin, that one dragged anchor and up at the beach, and 42-foot wooden ex-commercial fish boat up on the breakwater.
But those salvage efforts will have to be tempered with safety with more high winds in the forecast. RCMP in Nanaimo say a report of a military reservist being slashed across the neck because he was wearing his uniform was false. It didn't happen. We first brought you his story last week on Vancouver Island Report. Private Chad Shore showed us the slash across his neck and said he was attacked as he walked home from a meeting with his reserve regiment. He told us and told police that the attacker had questioned him about his military involvement, then pulled out the knife. The case brought public outrage, even from the Minister of Defense, condemning an attack on a member of our military. But RCMP now say the report was false, but they're not considering charges. They say there was no criminal intent. They say the military will conduct its own investigation.